Hey, dudes and dudettes. This is part three, I think, of the process video, and as you can see, we've come along a lot uh, from last video. I started making some decisions, like wanted everything to have kind of a pink hue and stuff like that, but this is definitely not final stuff, but this is, me starting to really finesse certain aspects about it. So first of all, I'll take off some layers here. Let me collapse that layer. These are my flats that I started going in, and as you can see here, I started doing some cell shading and stuff like that, and then around things like the fingers and around here and stuff, I was doing some gradients around the nose and the chin, and I'll probably do some around here to do kind of an eyeshadowy look. And then I'll probably do a gradient or some kind of overlaid layer in the smoke to make it a little more interesting. But it's pretty simple. It's really pretty simple stuff right now. Nothing too extreme. Oh wait, let me take that off. There we go. And this is sort of the idea that I started working with and kind of doing stuff. So let me I'll show you really quick the process I do when I do one of these solid gradients that's kind of comic book style aesthetic. Let's see here. What area should I do it with? Okay, this collar, for example. So I'm going to select my color layer. Actually, I only want this top half of the collar. So I'm going to deselect that with my lasso tool. And I want something really subtle. So what I'll do is I'll select my flatted layer, switch my paint bucket to gradient, and I'll do gradient where I'll start off with the neutral middle range color, and then I'll go in with my darker color like here, about maybe a little darker even. Hit OK, and then I'll go in my gradient tool and get an angle that I like. Before I do that, I need to pick a light source. I think the light's coming from over here in the top right area, so I want it to get darker as it gets back here, and that's a little too extreme looking, so maybe if I do that. See, and now the collar's got a whole new layer of depth to it. However, we're not done yet because this kind of folds inwards, so then what I usually do is I'll finesse it with an actual brush. So I'll switch from pencil to brush tool, something really feathered and a really low opacity, like 13–15%. And what I'll do is, like I said, I'll go back in, that's a little too light, and I'll kind of finesse this edge because I know that this is where it's folding inward. And I'll make it a little lighter up here too. And then I might take that and kind of bring it out over here where I know that this whole collar piece is folding in. Then I'll deselect, actually let me adjust that a little bit more. Deselect, zoom out, and now the collar's got a little bit of dimension to it. It's still a little wonky looking though. I'll lower this a little bit. I don't want it to be too extreme as a stylistic choice. I'm not trying to get too realistic or have too much rendering. As you can tell, I'm trying to do very minimal in terms of shading and stuff. Sometimes I go crazy with it. Let's see. Let me find a good example for y'all. The Wolverine drawing I did once. Here we go. See, this, for example, is, me really, really going nuts with some digital coloring and trying to get it to look very painterly in certain areas and very photorealistic in others. But I'm not going for this. I'm going for a very subtle, almost flat aesthetic to it. So another area that could probably use some cell shading are this pants area. Let me select that off. And like before, go in, pick the mid-range, and then pick the other end, be a darker shade of that. and just start playing around with it. It's all, you know, pretty subtle. I like the way that looks. And then, let's see, I might go in and go from the lighter color and go around the edges. That's not light enough. And then I'll go around the edges and just to kind of, oh wait, I need to put down a pencil tool. Go around the edges, like I said, to give it some reflective light, because everything, that's a little too light. Go into the lighter color and give certain pronounced edges some reflective light, because, well, that's how things work. That's how surfaces work. You know, things. And I'll probably go in here, and since this is supposed to be a metal surface, this definitely needs some reflective light on it. And see, it gives the buckle a little bit more of a pronunciation to it, and these edges I need to do on the other side will be good for doing out here to just, I don't want it to be too flat. I mean, I am going for a simplistic flatter aesthetic than usual, but not so much. We'll do some subtle edges on these surfaces since they're wrinkles, and you know, stuff like that. And that's what it kind of looks like. It helps give it just a tiny bit more life. I'm gonna make it a little darker in the shadows though. So now I'm just hitting Command L for my levels and dragging the shadow slider a little bit, because I don't want them to stick out too much. In fact, I think I will go in a little bit with a darker color and very lightly go in. And as you can see, like I was saying in one of my previous videos, there's no exact way I do something. I'll get things where I want, like at the beginning of this video, and then I will go in and start finessing stuff to where I like it. And if I don't like the way something looks, I'll go back on it. But I'm liking how this is looking. I want a little bit more highlight on this crotch area because I know that it's jutting out more from the rest of this. So I'll go in and, like right here, and just help highlight that to help define that wrinkle. And need some more over here too, because this area is coming out a little bit as well. And yeah, this is something like that. It's just a trial and error process. Same here with the wolf's brow over here. I know that I want this brow line to stick out more, so I'll go in, do some light shading in this area, and make sure that this has the right settings too. I want more shape dynamics, yeah, because I want it to really taper. And then I'm going to go in here, because this is, if you think about, actually before I start shading that, I'll explain it. I'll actually draw a little bit. Let's see. If you think, I'll use this pink. If you think about a wolf's skull, it's, in this picture at least, I'll do a really rough drawing of one. Its skull is doing, you know, this. Is that what a wolf's skull looks like? Who knows? If that's what the muzzle looks like. But let's just use as a very rough example. It's gonna have its cheekbones directly underneath the eye sockets, right? And this is an exaggerated, you know, cartooned wolf's head. So I really want things like certain areas like the brow lines to stick out, right? So it sticks out like that, and it kind of curves out like this. And see how it's all flat there? You just have a kind of uniform flatness. So what I want to do is I want to go in with my really light brush and kind of give it, whoop, that's the wrong color now, give it a little bit of light, really light shading in this area, just to show, hey, you know, this surface area right here sticks out more than right there. And it's all really, really subtle. I think I did it too much, so I'm going to go back in with this neutral color, select it, and kind of highlight this brow area a tiny bit more. And I always zoom in, zoom out, and try to get it where I like it. I still want it even more subtle than that. I want it really, really subtle. And that's about good. So I'll save that. Same with this area beneath the cheekbone. It's going to go indent, and then there's going to be a little bit of this kind of webbed area beneath the cheek and above the jawbone. And I want that to sink in more. So I'll select that area, pick this sort of darker color over here, and now I'm going to go in and very, very lightly go into this area. Let's see. More. Just a little bit. Actually, I stopped myself from singing respect by saying just a little bit. You'll thank me later. Go in here a little bit. Same thing. A little bit under the nose. It's always darker on a wolf's face. Here it'll need it. Here it'll need it. Tiny bit more. And right here under the jaw, it'll definitely be darker. Let's deselect that. And yeah, that's about what I wanted. It's still a little, I want it to be a tiny bit more subtle than that, so I'll go back in with the lighter color and see if I can't get a little bit lighter in this area. It's a little dark for what I wanted to do. Okay, almost there. 10's a little low, so let's go blast it. Alright, almost there, and I think we're good. Another area that could definitely use some gradient is this eye socket area. So let's change that. Here we go. I'm going for a subtle. Now, I want to get dark at the bottom of this pupil, so I'm just gonna do this kind of thing until I can get it exactly where I want it. That's looking pretty good, nice and subtle. However, I'll go back with my levels and make it a tiny bit darker in the shadows. Now, what I'm also going to do, because since eyes are really, really complicated and the way the anatomy goes, I want this to have a little bit of reflective surface in it. Maybe not quite that dark. There we go. Just a subtle little mark right here, just to show that doing this reflective surface right here is going to give the eye a little more depth. Even though I keep stressing that I'm going for the subtle thing here, let's do a gradient here too. I do want it to have a little, at least some depth, and that's what I'm going for. So we'll do a really subtle gradient there as well. And as you can see, it's starting to get a little more depth. Irises usually have like a darker kind of color around them. Or is this a pupil? I get my anatomy terms confused sometimes. Let's see, just a smidge darker. And they have this kind of darker edge around them. So that's what I want to do right here. And we zoom out. Actually, it doesn't need it on the inside, so let's undo that. And even still, I want it to be a little bit lighter. I don't want it to be so pronounced. I do want it to be super, super, super subtle. There we go. See, it's even though it's really, really subtle, it's giving it a look that I want. And I'm really liking this surface area around the iris. especially around here where I made a hard light reflection. It should probably get at least a little bit more light in between them, and it's given the eye definitely more of that subtle depth that I want. In fact, these are a little too harsh. I don't want it quite that bright. So, I'll try filling that in. And see, this is part of the trial and error. I'm going to see if I like that, or if it's too dark. Yeah, see, it's a little too dark. I'm going to lighten that up. Drag my mid level over. And it's still a little too dark. Maybe I will just leave it white. Or just an off-white. Yeah, that off-white's doing it for me. Okay. Check it out. Ah, dang it. Now I want this to be a little bit lighter on the outside. Doop. There we go. Let's layer it in subtly. Yeah. Yeah, that's better. And maybe just a little bit of that really bright white on the outside. Yeah, see, like I said, trial and error. Another thing I'm doing is experimenting with some overlays and stuff, because I wanted it all to have kind of a pink vibe, and as you can see, the blues and stuff really stick out, and so does this kind of grayish of the wolf. So I've made a pink layer that is on overlay, and it's at 50% right now. And as you can see, it's giving it all kind of uniform pink hue, as if you had pink lenses on your glasses. And so this isn't final or anything. I'm just playing around with it because I especially love what it does to the skin tone. I really, really like the rosiness and the really kind of crimsony pink it gives. Another thing I started playing around with here is like halftones and grain and stuff like that. For example, let's go to filter, noise, add noise. This is how I usually add grain. And as you can see, it's kind of dark, but that's when you start playing around with saturation and this and that. And then another thing I might do is go to filter, pixelate, color halftone. And this is another personal preference thing you have to figure out for yourself. These are just settings I usually like with mine. I'll hit OK, and it'll give it that kind of comic book halftone look once it's done loading. It looks kind of like a grid, but that's because it's a huge DPI, and this thing I was aiming with that. But you know, I really like this kind of print halftone look sometimes, and maybe I'll put the pink over that too, and resist the temptation to go too crazy, because then it'll just look, you know, if there starts being lens flares and lightning and mosaic filters everywhere, then you're probably going too far. But you know, it's definitely fun to play around with this look. It's also kind of manga inspired, and maybe you'll decide after this that you want to go in, go to your saturation, and if you do want that manga look, maybe I'll go in and, you know, take the saturation away, so that it's just gray tones, and it'll give it more uniformity with this overlay over it, and maybe I want it to look like this, you know, because I think that has a really cool look too. So yeah, like I said, whoa, that is crazy looking. Like I said, this is where I start getting really experimental with it. And that's why I have all these layers I set up that for once I didn't name, which is not like me, but usually I name them. But this is where I start really playing around with everything and whatnot. And I suggest you do the same. So that's it for now. Let me undo everything. But yeah, man, I'm loving the way that halftone looks. Maybe I will do that. And I will see you in part 4 when I've got it more or less finished, and then I'll go over all the stuff I did with the finishing touches. So I hope that was informative and helpful as far as seeing how I start to get to the finish line, and I will catch you on the flip side. I think I said in the last video, which is really lame, but whatever. Okay, bye.